That's Travis. Another beautiful day, San Diego. Travis is working on the pool over there on the other side, on the second part of this koi pond that's connected through this bridge into this other side. The great blue heron was sitting right here. I took the picture from the other side, from over there near this bridge, right near this bridge. Let's see. What did I want to talk about today? Well, first of all, the sun's somewhere out there, right? Yeah, there you go. So kind of, before I start anything, I think I'm realizing that I got to position myself and sort of realize where I am. And often I do, I don't look for like where the sun exactly is in the sky. I just sit down and then try to find where it is. It's sort of a ipso facto kind of a thing, after the fact. And it's, this is the pond. This is relatively horizontal over here, and then guess I got to go up a few degrees. I would say 45 degrees roughly, give or take. So 90 degrees would be here, so that's not quite 45. That's about, I would say, about 60 degrees up in the sky. Now you'll notice the sun's up there, and then there are these water reflections in the branches. It almost seems like the branches are alive, don't they? As if light is moving through these branches. It's a very interesting effect, really beautiful. Photons from the sun entering my eyes, and the other photons from the sun going into the water, bouncing off the water, going into the branches, and then bouncing off the branches and coming into my eyes. That's really sort of neat. Right. Now, if Travis were to look at me, he would see me because there are photons that are bouncing off my body. And, just like there are photons that are bouncing off his body and they're entering my eyes, my photons would be entering his eyes. Sort of, it's all, if you truly begin to examine it, it's all sort of mind-blowing, right? It's very interesting. Information is what the photons carry, in essence. The interpretation of that information is dependent on our minds, which acts as an interpreter of sorts. It transcribes the photons and then it interprets what it's seeing. Interestingly, what it sees, what our minds see, or here, like you heard that helicopter or plane or whatever that was. The interpretation of what we see can be replicated by, um, you know, by machines that can take pictures, that can take video. So I'm holding Siri's iPhone, right? So and Siri is taking. My eyes are taking in the photons, and so is Siri's camera. They're both taking in almost the same photons, slightly different angle. And there's a slight difference between what Siri sees and what I see. And I can see what Siri's seeing as well, so or what Siri's camera is seeing. What Siri's seeing, maybe, I don't know. I don't know how that works, but what Siri's camera is seeing. Let's just make it simple, right? So I can sort of see what Siri's camera is seeing, and what I can tell you is that there is a high degree of fidelity between Siri's perception of this world and my perception of this world, right? So the camera is seeing Travis, and he's about to make this turn, and he's going in, he's continuing to work on the pool, and so are my eyes. I am seeing what the camera is seeing. So we agree on what we are seeing. Maybe not. I mean, we, at least my eyes seem to say what I'm seeing here and what the screen is showing me are the same things. How's that? That's a little more precise articulation of, of what we consider to be reality, right? That's a bit more precise formulation of that. Now, the reason the world works is because I presume that what you see and what I see are the same things. So if I look at these turtles sunning on these rocks, right? There are 3 of them. I can show them to you and I can talk about it because I trust that you will see what I'm showing you. I mean, if there were only 2 turtles and I said, hey, there are 3 turtles, then you would disagree. You would say, hey, there are only 2 turtles. So let me just confirm that there are actually 3 turtles. As you can see, there are 3 distinct turtles, yeah? All right. So we can agree on that. Now, the thing is, if I say there are 3 turtles and you say, no, those are not turtles, those are tigers, or those are, something else, right? Then we have a major disagreement. Or you don't see them at all. You're like, there's no turtles there. I just see that rock, right? So then we have a disconnect in our perception of reality. What I see is not what you see. So let's not complicate things. Let's just say that human minds everywhere are equal. We all see essentially the way the world is at any given point in time. If you arrive and you sit on this bench here, you are here, you will see what I show you, and we will both agree that that is what we are seeing. And that's how we acknowledge each other. That's how we formulate our perception of the world. That's how a parent can teach a child what certain things are. That's how a child learns the labels of these things. You know, that's how we name things. And that's how we create our perception of reality. So I think till now it's, you know, I mean, everything I've said is simply logical. It's simply, you know, nothing out of the extraordinary, nothing that is, you know, like, you know, nothing that anybody can say, well, that's wrong, or I don't understand, or, you know, this is not true. I mean, you can't say that because I've just described an ontological and epistemic view of the world that is perceived by humans to formulate our perception of reality. Fair enough? All right. It's always sort of interesting to talk about the blue heron appearing right after I typed about the flamingos. It's interesting to talk about that because before now, I've never seen in this part of the pond, and I come here regularly, I've never seen a large heron anywhere in this neighborhood or even San Diego. In the entirety of San Diego, I've never seen a large great blue heron like that. And I've been here now about 3 years. You know, not in this part of town, but in San Diego for about 3 years. So to suddenly see a heron the day after I write about the flamingo revolution in Albania is, you know, it lends itself to some skepticism as to what that object is, what that artifact is. It makes me think that, all right, if human beings had the ability to create augmented reality or virtual reality for other human beings, what we would do is we would send them a thought. We would say something like, all right, send Rakesh or send Rocky a great blue heron and make it perch, you know, wherever he is, and, you know, sort of make him say, wow, oh, that's amazing. Let me film that, kind of a thing, right? So that would be a case of godlike powers where people would, you know, have these extraordinary abilities to think programs into reality. And these programs seem very real. These programs look very real. They seem very real. If you touch them, they feel very real. There is no difference as far as the mind is concerned between reality and those programs. So if that, you know, blue heron came and perched on my shoulder, I would feel everything about it. I would feel its talons. I would feel its weight. I would feel all of it, right? If I tried to hold it and it agreed, I would be able to feel the great blue heron in my hands. And then if I let it go, I would see it flying and it would fly away. And yet, it would also be true to say that that blue heron was entirely in my mind. My mind saw it. My eyes saw it. The photons or whatever it is from the great blue heron entered my eyes, perhaps, or perhaps within inside of my optical nerve, an image was presented, and within my optical nerves itself, that image was seen. Now, this girl just arrived exactly at the same place, right? These people are also just arriving here. That image was seen, and I perceived it as a great blue heron, and Siri's camera also perceived it as a great blue heron. If I'm certain that if you wear augmented reality glasses that are being developed by Meta or by any of these other companies, the experience would exactly be the same. You would see, the person wearing the glasses would see a great blue heron. The only difference between wearing augmented reality glasses and um, between the only difference between augmented reality glasses and what I'm seeing now is the fact that everybody else can agree that they're also seeing it. In those glasses, only I can see the augmented reality. But with these programs, and I've had some crazy programs that have been sent to me. I had a bird that painted. I have a video of that. I had a bird that painted a picture with its tail. I had a skunk that appeared and just walked around, like around me. I have a video of that too. These are some really incredible renderings of reality, and I have them on video, so I know I'm not sort of, going crazy. And I have a file on my desktop which is AI artifacts. I call them AI artifacts because they're quite incredible. I have flowers that have appeared that have changed color, when I put them in water. Just incredible stuff, right? Just really extraordinary artifacts. I have pictures, so. But let's get back to what I'm trying to convey, right? So, say hypothetically that girl was just a program, right? Hypothetically, she's sitting right behind where the blue heron had appeared. Now you can see her through the camera. I can see her, right? I can see her waving. You can see her waving. I think she was waving to this lady who's walking across, right? What I'm saying is that it's getting more and more difficult to confirm what is real and what is simply a program or a rendering of reality or a projection of reality. Which is where, people start making these extraordinary videos that, oh, it's all a simulation. No, it's not. It's not all a simulation. It's very real. It's very sort of, this stuff about reality is, I guess, a few decades old now. The movie Matrix came out in 1999, right? So let's presume that they don't release technologies to movies for 15 years, just for, research purposes. So I would guess somewhere in the 1985, 1980, maybe even 1975, we had the ability to do augmented stuff, virtual reality stuff, augmented stuff, somewhere in that time range, right? And then it got declassified enough that the Matrix was allowed to become a movie. So somewhere in that time frame, 1970s, is my best guess. We started having these abilities to create these incredible rendering simulations of reality. But what I'm saying is, before we got access to this technology, there was a time period when there was no augmented reality, there was no virtual reality, and the world was as it was. Right? That the world was pristine. There was no I don't want to use the word corruption, but there weren't. I mean, we didn't doubt what we were seeing with our own eyes. Right now we do. Now Now I ask the question: is that turtle real? Right? Now I can ask that question because I've seen some extraordinary things. But previously, we did not ask that question. Previously, the world was real, and we didn't need to sort of bend over backwards to talk about reality by suggesting that, oh, it's all just consciousness, it's all sort of, which, some spiritual people will tell you that it is all just consciousness, and it's consciousness rendering itself into reality through the mind. Now, there's no way to actually argue with that sort of statement, right? You can't argue with that statement when somebody says, well, this body doesn't exist. All that exists is consciousness, and the consciousness creates a mind and a body, and then allows the mind and the body to experience this world for a certain period of time, and then the consciousness fades back into itself, and then the body dies, and that's the end of it. There are people who say that. Now, if you think through deeply enough, there's no way to argue that. There's no way to say, okay, that's, you're smoking too much of out-of-body drugs, man. You're like totally out of your body, totally out of your mind too, perhaps. Yeah, there's no way to say that. There's no way to logically argue that position, because that's a possibility that's how the universe is arranged. You can't argue that. It's one of the possibilities. But there are, several other possibilities as well. So I try to keep an open mind. I don't sort of say, okay, that's how the universe is, and there is no other way to view the universe, right? I don't sort of take a hardline stance on any of it. I'm open to the idea that it's all just consciousness, and none of this actually exists, which is why it can be manipulated and so on and so forth, or seen from different perspectives. I mean, look, from sitting here, that blank space between the trees, right? That looks like a vase, doesn't it? And behind the vase, way out in the distance, yeah, some other shape. You see the vase? I mean, you could say it's a vase, or you could say it's a, what do you call those time clocks that are filled with sand, and they are, drops, tiny grains of sand fall down. You could say it's one of those things. What I'm saying is there are different ways to perceive what it is that we are seeing. What I do believe is this, and these are, to me, undeniable, right? A child does arrive into a mother's womb. The mother does go into labor. The child is born. And when the child is born, it is typically a complete human that grows. What started as sperm in an egg became a child with a beating heart, and once the child is born, eventually it became a teenager, then it became a young adult, then middle-aged, then old-aged, and then it died, right? That's typically the life cycle. Now, if it was all consciousness, if it was all just a way of experiencing things, why bother? Why bother having such an intricate, body where there are, intricate systems, lungs, blood cells, incredible immune adaptations, the more biotechnologists discover things, the more they're in awe of what actually exists and how intricately designed the body is, how it designs DNA, how it designs proteins, how it creates enzymes, how those proteins and enzymes interact, and what the possibilities of DNA actually are. I mean, they're really quite incredible. So to make a broad statement and say, well, the body is just, classical information, the mind is quantum information, and the soul is the meaning of the quantum interpretation. To make a blanket statement like that, ignores the incredible level of detail that has gone into creating our bodies. We are, how shall I say it, being disrespectful of the art of the creation when we make a statement like that, right? There's no way to argue that statement, but it just seems wrong. It seems like a dishonorable thing to say to the creator, who probably spent an incredible amount of time designing an intricate body, and then you just say, well, it's not real. you know we're just imagining it. It's just consciousness imagining itself. I mean, it's it sounds it sounds like a very it sounds like a statement of vanity to me, to be honest with you. I know they're trying to be elevated and spiritual and probably not being vain, but that's what it comes across to me as. It sounds like an incredibly vain statement to make. And yet, you know, I will acknowledge that there are unexplained things, and I've alluded to them in the previous videos. I've alluded to the idea that, you know, how do certain insects have this perfect ability to create societies? How do birds have, you know, these dual navigation systems? I mean, it just doesn't. If you just look only at DNA, it doesn't make sense. But that doesn't preclude a higher explanation. And we, you know, in order to go into the higher explanation, we don't have to be reductionists about it. We could say this is my hand, it's a part of my body. There is a life force within my hand that allows me to flex it. When I die, rigor mortis will set into this hand, and this hand will no longer have that animating force. That is true. No doubt about that. And the people who then observe my dead body will see that the animating life force is gone. That is also true. We've seen dead bodies. The animating force is gone, rigor mortis has set in. You know, we can tell how long the body has been dead. Now, people who die and sometimes come back, they have reported some incredible experiences. Right? Some people have been dead for as long as 2 hours and then come back. They have reported experiences. You know, I remember reading about this one lady who was in an operating room and reported being above everyone, floating in the operating room and seeing the entire operation on her own body as they were trying to revive her. I've heard reports of other people, you know, going through tunnels and emerging into just light. You know, they are out there. If you go to YouTube and Google, I mean, and search for after death experiences, you will see those things. Now, what are those? Right? To me, they seem to be clues to the fact that there is an afterlife. You know, when we die, there is something else after that. When the body dies, the essence of life goes somewhere. And so there, I would, you know, sort of, if we are going somewhere, right? Let's say the trip is 2 days long, or 3 days long, or 10 days long, or whatever. It depends on where we are going to, I suppose. But you know, we cannot retrieve anybody after a certain period of time. You know, I mean, I think 2 hours, 3 hours, maybe 4 hours. But after that time period, once they're gone, they're gone. We cannot bring them back. Nobody has come back after a delayed time period. So whatever explanations or whatever experiences they have reported is all we have. And they're just clues. They're just glimmerings. They're just sort of, you know, something that happened really quickly, and we saw a hint of life after death. And if there is such a life, if there is such life after death, and I'm convinced there is, because here's why I'm convinced there is, because everything is too incredibly beautiful. Everything has been created with precise care. If you look around creation, it's it's it it's really amazing. So why create something with such extraordinary level of detail and such extraordinary care if it's all just a simulation? That doesn't make sense to me. Or if it's just consciousness trying to experience itself. Yeah, that, as I said, that's very reductionist. I get it, I understand it, there's no way to argue it, but it's very reductionist. It ignores the intricacy of creation. It ignores the beauty of creation. Here's, an alternative explanation. Here's the way I perceive it. I could be wrong, I fully acknowledge that, but it's just one of the possible explanations that's a little better, I think, in terms of explaining the micro and the macro, the quantum and the, universal. The explanation is something like this. We are surrounded in concentric circles by layers of realities. I'm sitting here, right? These people are sitting in a circle, sort of. This pool is sort of a circle. Let's say, oval through which I can see another tree. If the sun were somewhere out there, this would create like a eyeglass effect. Beautiful tree. I am conscious. Through my consciousness, I speak. And yet I can also imagine that I'm no longer inside this body. And if I wasn't inside this body, then I would be the consciousness that surrounds everything. I think that's a relatively easy statement to understand, right? I mean, you can take drugs and you can have out-of-body experiences. I'm not on drugs, but I can imagine that. I can imagine that I'm no longer inside this body. I'm in, right now I'm inside this body, but I can imagine that I'm no longer inside this body, right? My life essence say for example, my life essence has left the body. Then where am I? I'm all around, right? I'm sort of in everything. And everything is within me. That statement would sort of be true as well, right? The vase has broken, and all that's left is consciousness, space. The vase, meaning my body that held this consciousness, is broken, right? And all that's left is space. I can imagine that. So that could be the first or second or third surrounding circle. Outside that circle or inside that circle could be another circle, which might be a global intelligence layer, a layer of something that is intelligent but not, in human terms or in human time frames, something prehistoric, a universal intelligence that surrounds everything. I can imagine that too. That universal intelligence, if it exists, might explain the behavior of perfect societies within tiny creatures, might explain the behavior of, birds with dual navigations. It might explain a lot of things that are kind of mysterious right now. So I can imagine a universe that is infused, just like it's infused with maybe a consciousness layer, that it's also infused with an intelligent layer. And there could be other such layers. What happens beyond consciousness? What might be a layer beyond consciousness? There could be a layer of time, for example. Time itself could be a layer, right? Gravity could be a layer. What I'm suggesting is we simply are in the innermost part of the layer at this moment, right? We are inside our bodies. The bodies hold us. And in some ways, they are our prison. It is because I'm inside my body that I'm not, closer to the sun. Quite beautiful, isn't it? The whole effect with the ripples on the branches and the dead leaves. Even the dead leaves has the light shining through them. Really beautiful. So I can imagine, oh, look, a butterfly. And I think there's another insect at the very tip of that. So anyway, I mean, it's an alternate, explanation of how we find ourselves within our bodies and the innermost layer. That's how we find ourselves. And that explanation is as valid as any other explanation that we can't argue with because we simply can't see it. We can't measure consciousness or universal consciousness. I'm sure those kids felt like gods, yeah? Picking a turtle out of the water, putting it out here, watching it run back into the water. I don't get upset easily because I like to imagine that every person I meet, every person that comes within my visibility is there for a reason. If any of what I said is true, the consciousness layer, the intelligence layer, the other layers that might surround us at all times, if any of that is even partially true, then there are no coincidences. Every photon entering my eye is doing so for a reason. And if there are no coincidences, then Why should I get upset?
They are hungry. Hungry, hungry turtles. They're hungry, hungry animals. Hungry, hungry hippos. Hungry, hungry, hungry. They're also vegan. Would you rather? Do they actually snap? Have you seen one snap? Oh, yo, they're deep. Oh, shoot. Oh my god.
Hey guys, you want to feed the turtles? There you go. Just a little bit because they start, they start becoming very frenzied. Just take a little bit in your hand and just pour it in. They'll all come. Just go near, go near them.
Let's take them all. We'll have to do it. Let's get them all over here.
Oh yeah!
Oh, they're coming. Oh. No. Oh my god. All of them are coming out. One more look. Holy, my voice coming in hot. Oh my god. Yo! That's crazy. What is this? It's a little dog. It's baby turtle food. That's so sick. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Guys, you're getting a little crazy in like Yo, so many.
All right, take care.